here since 89, 90. I moved to LA from New York. Because initially I lived in New York. I moved to New York from North Dakota. So that was a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah.
Went to school in New York for like 2 years and then dropped out because at the time, this is like 86, 87, 88, there really weren't any like makeup schools. So I figured the next best thing was like animation. I could sculpt like stop motion puppets, whatever. So I moved to New York and enrolled in School of Visual Arts in the animation department. And, just wound up animating all day. And I took a class, like one of the only classes that I found, which was in Times Square. It was this gentleman, Dean Cartalis, had what he called the actor's makeup class. And it was a series of weekends. It was a month's worth of weekends. And we we did a live cast, we sculpted a prosthetic, ran it, applied it, and you were done. And that was it. It was back to animating. So I figured the only way to really pursue this was to come out to California, so I packed up from New York, went back home for maybe 6 months in North Dakota, organized everything, moved out to LA. Right now I've been listening to just sort of because of this piece I'm working on, this Fishman thing, I've just been listening to this weird, like, sort of, I don't want to say industrial, but it's just like this droning ambient noise, that just kind of, allows your mind to go. It doesn't really push you anywhere. It just lets you kind of go down your own path, which I find inspirational. And then when I was younger, I used to do a lot of writing, and I would listen to soundtrack music and walk around and, imagine various scenes and scenarios and stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot of soundtrack stuff. I listen to some rock, some classic rock. I really do. I listen to everything. I was listening to Pink Floyd the other day. All kinds of stuff. This is another tangent. You need to get to a point where you aren't afraid to mess up. Because if you're too nervous about messing up, you're going to mess up. You gotta feel free with, like, okay, if I screw it up, I can go back, I can fix it, whatever. It's not the end of the world. And at that point, you can really start becoming creative. And each thing you do is, it's different. It's its own experience. It's like you can bring your skills and your tools from other experiences you've had doing makeup, but each thing poses its own challenge. So you've got to be ready for those, and you draw on your past challenges, but don't be disheartened or thrown off course if the usual stuff's not working. It's like I get to a place usually when I'm doing a makeup, I know that I've gotten to a place, and it's subconscious. People have pointed it out to me. It's like where I'll take one hand and I'll like put it in my pocket while I'm painting. I'll just like have it in my, and that's how I know that, okay, now I'm comfortable, and it's like I can, because every time I go in, it's like, oh, is this going to fit? Is this going to, to make sure. And it's like you're looking at, an unpainted thing on a guy's face. It's like, how in the world is this ever going to turn into sort of what you imagined it was when you were sculpting? It's like, you know what? It's just time. Spend your time, do your thing, do your noodling, do your painting. Ventura.
How did you end up at Steve's? You may have said that last one. We're going to revisit.
Well,
How did you get there?
Yeah, when I came out, from New York, I worked for Gabe for a show, and then he had a little bit of a hiatus. So I just shopped my portfolio around. Remember back in the days when people had portfolios? Yeah, I shopped that around, and I got an interview with Steve, so I went over there and I interviewed with him, and he hired me on. I think I was
Who hooked you up? I mean, it's always
nobody.
Really? You called
Nobody.
Steve and
Yeah.
he said-
Well, I think I had gotten a list of of shops, and I called up, send us your portfolio, and then I got a call because at the time he was doing the Foster's thing, which required a lot of crew. So I went over there and I met with him, and he hired me to, it was like running foam or some running polyfoam, A/B foam. And I wound up working with Lenny McDonald, coding these Foster's characters with this, I think it was SC89 or something like that. And then after that show was over, sort of my mentality was, okay, well, at that point you go to another shop and you work, and that's how you do it. You just go from shop to shop. So I went and I worked, I applied for a job over at Rick Lazarini's preacher shop. At which point Steve was like, well, why are you leaving? I was like, I just thought that's what you do. I already taken this job with Rick Lazzarini, so I went over there. I ran some more foam. And then after that was done, I went back to Steve's, and I stayed there for like 8 years.
Working under Steve, he's one of the big fish in town that's on there. You got to watch him like any leader. You get to see his strengths, you get to see his weaknesses.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything on that?
Absolutely. I learned, and everybody's different. Everybody has their own personality, and they bring that into this industry. I mean, we're a community of artists, and artists are inherently a little off. I mean, you've got to be to create. I mean, you're coming up with something from nothing, and that takes a special kind of personality. I think what I learned is to, in sort of running my own shows, is find the strengths of my crew, and a lot of my crew have worked for Steve, like Lenny. He's part of my crew because he's brilliant. Take those strengths and let them play to those, but at times you have to reel it in. You have to reel them because you're the boss, and when the hammer falls, it falls on you. Right. I think that's it. It's playing to it, but and at the same time, it's like I don't want to be. I want to be a friend of production because that's the world we live in. That's the world we work in. So I can't let my drive sort of outdistance my business sense, because ultimately your next job is coming from this same community, and it's a close community. If you fumble on one, they're going to hear about it on another. But yeah, I mean, working for Steve, I mean, I think it's I took a lot away from that. It's thinking outside the box. It's not thinking linear. It's pushing the envelope, but not so far that you rub people the wrong way, including your crew, because these are the people that you're depending on. No man is an island, you need the help and support of your team in order to pull this stuff off. It's interesting being sort of where I'm at now because there's no anonymity anymore. There's no, okay, well, if I don't pull this off, I can always go work for another shop or whatever. Nobody's going to hire me at another shop because, I'm seen as competition. Not that I would want to do that anyway, but I think that, no, I shouldn't even say that because I would. I don't care. I don't care where I'm creating as long as I can keep creating, because that's the bottom line for me. It's like I want to keep making characters. I don't care if it's for somebody else, if it's for myself, if it's for nothing, if it's for a film, if it's for a school, a class, a demo, whatever. I don't care. As long as I can keep making characters, then I'm happy. Now, after, sort of coming up in this industry, I'm at a place where if I can think of it, more often than not, I can create it, with the help of my team. So I think that to stop doing that, and this is another thing I took away from Steve's, is when I was at Steve's, I never saw him apply a makeup, or sculpt or anything. And I don't want to be just the administrative figurehead. I want to always be an artist. I mean, I had a shop for maybe a minute when I was younger, and it's like it's overhead, and you're paying out well more than you're getting back. Now what we do, I mean, we've got this thing called, a traveling carnival, which is basically what the film industry is at this point. It's not really here in Los Angeles anymore, it's global. So if you want to sort of fit in with that lifestyle, you've got to be mobile yourself. So what we'll do is like Pirates 4, we went, we shot in Hawaii, took all my equipment to Hawaii, took it out of a storage unit, set up a shop there, built there, mere feet from the director. He could come and see what we're doing anytime. Rather than emailing photographs and, videos or whatever, you don't get a sense of it. Lone Ranger, went to Albuquerque, went to Creed, went to Utah, we were all over the place. Dark Shadows, went to London. We take the shop wherever the film is being made, so that it's all on site, because production moves there months in advance of principal photography, and that's where the director is, that's where your other departments are, so that's where we should be. They don't want to be, at least I would think that they wouldn't want to be corresponding with an aspect of their film that's not on site. And I think that, for makeup artists, it's all the more reason to know every aspect of makeup, because productions are going to start expecting more that you can handle. It's like, okay, we've got our beauty, we've got our character makeup, we've got some prosthetic stuff. You better be able to handle all of that, rather than them having to go outside of your makeup department to a makeup effects shop to build your prosthetics and then deliver them to set. It's like it's much more beneficial to production and to you as a makeup department and makeup artist to be able to build it all in-house. The first real movie that I worked on was The Grinch, and that was like, you couldn't ask for better sort of training ground. Although I had done makeups at Steve's, it was like, you had every different, technique, demonstrated for you on a daily basis in that bullpen.
Yeah, that was a special one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like working on The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
So many people in our industry at the time that were great. And you could walk around and watch the way they approach this one or the way they approach that one.
That's what I did. I mean, I would walk around and I would like watch everybody's technique, and it's like my makeups, truthfully, at the beginning of that show were not good at all. It's like, oh my God. Because I think what I was doing is I was watching everybody else's technique and just like foregoing mine, thinking that mine had no validity because I wasn't in this world. You know what I mean? And so then when I decided to, okay, it's like I'm just going to do it how I know how to do it, they started turning out great. But still, I would pick up, techniques, and I'd start to incorporate them into what I was doing, and I have since then. I was just painting, and nobody had an airbrush really, and there were, a couple here and there. So I was like, you know what? That's how I know, because that's how we did like the stand at Steve's. All those like flu victims were all airbrush spattered. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do that because I know how to do that. And I started doing that, and then they, I was like, I think I was one of the last people there. They kept me on until the end, which was great. So something started working, yes. I mean, what I use now is it probably was just designed for that, but what I use now is a Apache H. It's like, the $100 workhorse airbrush.
Yeah, the old school.
Yeah, it's like, that's it, single action. I'll just open the cone. Usually it's a number 3 tip. And just, let gravity do the rest. But I'm so adept at it now that it's like, it's like second nature. But you try to show people that who haven't done it, it's like, it's like, you get it, just play with it.
Do you remember the who's you were doing?
It was,
We had a few people going through your chair.
I had two main ones, Stas and Granger. Granger Ash and Stas Griner, I think. They were just like two background who's, but they were my guys.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that those are their names too, which is
That's actually
cool
good.
that I remember that. I think I did a couple of things, and then V had called me based on Bill Corso's recommendation and asked me if I would come do AI. It was AI. And so I worked with her on AI, and then that led to, we had a
Galaxy Quest with her?
I didn't do Galaxy Quest, no. We had a good run. We did AI, we did, Pirates 1, 2, and 3. We did Constantine. We did, I'm sure there were others. We did I Love You, Philip Morris. We did a few things together. Yeah, it was something else. It's like I've spent
It's like a decade of your life, almost, right?
pretty close. I've been on every pirate movie.
Yeah.
With another one coming. Knock on wood. I knew that it was going to be good. I did, but I was reserving my judgment because, when we had, AI, didn't do that great, and I thought that was going to be amazing, because I remember standing in the room for some of these sequences, some of these scenes that, I was tearing up. It's like the end scene where, the camera pulls out the window and he's there with his mom. I was tearing up. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be, it's Spielberg, it's science fiction, it's kids. It's going to be awesome. And then when it didn't do so good, I was like, I don't know why, but it sucks. And so then when I was on Pirates, I'm like, this is going to be good, but I was wrong about it. I think AI is a good movie, but it didn't do as well as I thought it was going to do. But Pirates certainly did. There's some difficult shoots in St. Vincent and Dominica where you've got your kit and you're hiking down a mile, because I swear to God, it was scouted from the air. It's like, oh, that's a good place to shoot right down there. There's no roads going to it, but we'll build one. And it's like the grade is like, 45 degrees and you're hiking down in like blistering sun. And
I heard it was pretty sucky working on the ships too, where it looks glamorous.
Oh, no.
That's rough.
If you're at all seasick, yeah, it would be horrible. But I loved being on those ships.
Did you?
I loved it, yeah.
Did you have to be below deck when the camera was rolling?
Yeah, you got to go below deck or you got to hide behind this thing or whatever that thing. But you're on a pirate ship. The middle of the Caribbean. It's like, how do you beat that? You got to step outside of yourself every now and then and go, you know what? It's like I could be, doing something that I absolutely hate. Instead, I'm in the middle of the Caribbean, blue waters everywhere, and I'm on the Black Pearl. It's like, how do you beat that? I would come in the morning. I'd go to the background tent, make sure everything's happening there, do makeups myself, facial hair, whatever. Johnny's arriving. Go back to his trailer, do his makeup. He's got however much time before he goes to set. Go to the A trailer, make sure everything's happening there. Constantly communicating with the guys from the shop. And then when Johnny goes to set, I'm with him 100%. But I'm not just on him. It's like, because he's playing opposite, whomever. He's in the crowd scene, whatever. So it's like I'm watching him. Yeah, it still gives me time to go around to...
Is that a tough balance?
It's a lot of work. I wouldn't be... Truthfully, I don't think I'd be department heading, Lone Ranger if I wasn't sort of Johnny's guy. I mean, I'd hope that I would. I hope that I prove myself, but
I think by now the people would get that, but maybe in the beginning that's what that was.
Yeah,
now
I mean,
they're seeing the advantage of you got the track record.
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully that's sinking in, and they don't just see me as, okay, well, it's Johnny's guy, and we can, it's like I want the work to speak for itself rather than like the cost benefit. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I love being busy. It's like, I just went on vacation to Hawaii, and I realized I'm no good on vacation because I can't turn my brain off. It's like I'm there for, I think, 6 days, and after 2-3 days, I'm like, oh, what do we do now? Perfect summer escape movie. I thought this is one of those instances where I was making the movie and I thought this is going to be fantastic. It's going to do amazing. This is a great movie, and I loved it. Even when I saw it, I loved it. I had a great time in it, even having lived through it all. So yeah, I mean, and everybody that I've talked to that has seen it has really liked it. And the people that have listened to the critics and then decided to go see it themselves have come back and said, this is great, I love it, and I've seen it multiple times. I think it's a real shame. I think it's a shame that, and it exists in our industry too. Critics, people that can come in without having built anything and pass judgment on the work of others. It's to me, that's unacceptable, and I've been guilty of that in the past, and this situation really sort of shined a light on that for me. So I'm not, it's like you don't know what people go through. You don't know the extent to which people have invested themselves or their time or their art or their, blood, sweat, and tears into a project. So I think it's unfair, for people to pass judgment on that weren't a part of it. The second they released the photo of Johnny and Army in full makeup and wardrobe on horseback, Johnny with the crow on his head, and instantly people were like, wow, it's ridiculous. What is that? It's like, it works in the context of the film. It's like you're passing judgment on something that you have no concept about. You have no frame of reference for why it really angers me because there are people in our industry that should know better, that, through social media or whatever are condemning this film. It's like, really? It's like when that comes around, when this whole cycle comes back around and these people are looking for something from, myself or from Jerry or from whomever, it's like, you're going to be damned if you're going to get it. It's like, because I'm going to remember this stuff.
Right.
And I don't mean to sound bitter, but it's like I am with this movie because, the pirate movies, I'm honored to be a part of them, but that look was established. That wasn't the look that, it wasn't established by me. It was established by V and to a lesser extent me and the rest of the crew. This look for this movie, I was the department head, so I went a long way towards me establishing the look. Truthfully, it hasn't opened in the UK yet, so, and I've been hearing a lot, there are reviews coming out now that are basically slamming the original critics of The Lone Ranger. So hopefully they're, which I think is well deserved. So hopefully that, the European market is anxious to set itself apart from the American market, and they embrace the film because it's a good summer fun escape movie, in a summer that's full of computer generated imagery. Here's some real stuff. You can go see real adventure.
You didn't have a giant robot fighting in it.
Didn't have a giant robot fighting. Not that I have anything against that. It's like, like I said, I'm not going to slam any movie. It's like every movie's, is geared towards its audience. Go back to the bird on Tonto's head. If you don't get it, you don't get it because you don't know the context. So don't pass judgment until you know the content. I mean, sometimes I want to go farther, sometimes he wants to go farther. We get in there, from the moment we start talking about it. We just start brainstorming things, and then I'll go off and I'll sculpt a variety of versions. And we get in there and we start gluing them on, we take this part off. I try to make everything modular so we can, like with Barnabas, we have nose tip, let's take that off, chin, let's take that off, cheeks, let's lose that, nose bridge, let's keep that, ears, more pointed, less pointed, whatever it is. There's a variety of steps we go through before we even get to the painting of it. And then the painting, it's like, okay, well, do we push this? Do we go lighter and more contrasty? Do we not? And then once you find it, this goes back to what I was saying before. It's like then every day is a little different, because it's got to be organic. It can't be. This is the regimen. You go from A to Z, following this linear path. It's like it's got to be artistry every time. Otherwise, I'm gonna be so bored that, even if it's an amazing character, that it's gonna suffer. I mean, there's always things that I think I could do differently. I think that's true of any artist. After you're done, and it is what it is, and everybody else gets their hands on it, and the film comes out, you go, oh, I could have done that a little different, could have done this a little different, whatever. Going back to Lone Ranger, when I went to see it, I saw it in New Mexico at the initial press conference for the film, and there was a screening. I was like, oh, I'll go see it, because I was going to go. I went to the premiere, at Disneyland, but I know the first time I see anything, it's like I'm very critical of it. And I sat down and they're expecting, I'm going to get that part of it out of the way. I'm going to get the critical part out of the way and see everything that I think I could have done better. So then when I see it at the premiere, I'll be able to enjoy it just as, a film. And I was having too much fun. I couldn't do it. I couldn't separate myself from it. So I was really blindsided when it didn't, do as well as I was thinking it would have, because it was a fun movie. But I think living in LA, I feel more connected. I think if I lived somewhere else, I would just, it's like going on vacation for too long. It's like I feel out of the loop. Here in LA, it's like, I have my crew around me. I have my, suppliers around me. I can get materials. I can make my stuff. There's the film schools here, the makeup schools, that I can, still keep myself occupied by, doing demos or whatever. I think if I lived somewhere else that didn't offer all that, I'd miss it too much. I wouldn't feel like I was on the inside. They love it. They were always very supportive, when I was growing up, with all the sort of the wacky things that I would try in the house. I'd read, like I said, when I was growing up, there weren't any makeup sort of classes or makeup schools, but there were books. So, in reading these books, I knew what kind of materials to order. It's back when R&D foam latex was around, so I ordered a bunch of that, some hydrocal, some ultracal, and I'd make things in the garage and end up baking them in my mom's oven. And, for the amount of damage that I did to their house, they were always, still really supportive, So when I won the Academy Award, as sort of a thank you and, might show my appreciation, I let them have it. So they have it at their place. Jaws. Yeah, Jaws is amazing.
It's too bad Spielberg can't enjoy it as much.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like what we were talking about at, at the Roosevelt. It's like, when your experience of watching the movie is so intertwined with your experience of making the movie, it's a completely different experience than anybody else will get from it. But yeah, no, I think Jaws is an amazing movie. Not, doing no small part to the problems that it had, and the way that he figured out how to shoot the shark without having a shark. I think makes it a better movie. Now I remember seeing that for the first time at a drive-in in I think it was Colorado. We drive-in in Colorado, and it freaked me out when Ben Gardner's head came floating out. It freaked me out so much that I couldn't watch the rest of the movie. I just buried myself in the back of the car. And then I saw it again, a couple of years later, and then it actually took me a while before I could watch that head sequence again, where the head comes floating out.
How old were you when you saw
I think I was in my teens.
that? It came out 74, 75, something.
Oh, when I saw it originally?
Yeah.
Well, I was born in '68, so I was pretty young. Yeah, and I didn't see it again. I didn't see that Ben Gardner, severed head sequence until I was like, 16, 17. Some sort of mental block. I just couldn't watch it. It's like, I know it's coming. The music's building. I know it's coming. I can't look. I like to sculpt. I like to paint. I still like to, I like to do makeups. I never stop. I think that is really sort of. I mean, that's shows you the true passion is the people that can, still do makeup even when they're not being paid to do makeup, And it's like, that's why I got into this business. It's to make characters. So, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm on a film, I'll always have like a side project going on where I'm just doing stuff for myself, like sculpting, or I've done rings and jewelry and stuff like that. Or when I'm not working, I'll do the demos. I'll come up with characters that I want to do, and really we just need a venue to do them at. So that it became like cinema makeup school, and the trade show, and wherever. It's like we just need a place to do them. Well, initially, how I got involved is Barney Berman had called me to come work in the shop, and then ultimately be like the liaison between his shop and set. See, now that's something you don't see every day. Is just a guy running down the middle of Sunset Boulevard, right? You gotta love that. He's like running down the middle of the street. At least he's in a lane, so I guess that's good. Yeah, so I started initially, working at Barney's place, and once filming started, I rotated to set, and then we, he would drop stuff off on set, drop off various appliances, and we glue them on. So I mean, that's that was sort of the genesis of my involvement in Star Trek. But like you said, it wound up being something much different than it started off being. It turned out that what was being delivered to set, as far as appliances go, for the Vulcans wasn't really working. We had a bunch of very skilled, talented makeup artists that were gluing these ears on. And the problem was there was no barrier on these ears. So I sent, the producers came to me and they asked me, if I could, because at this time the Romulans hadn't started shooting yet. So they came to me and asked me if I could sort of take over the Vulcans and build the Romulans. And then Barney would still be involved in sort of these peripheral, makeups that wound up being mostly background. I said yes. I told them that I would have to bring in my own crew. I couldn't at that point be working for anybody because my hands would have been tied as far as how to build the appliances. guys, and I knew that I needed my own team, and I had to be, I had to sort of spearhead how these things were being made. They agreed, and we set up shop right there on the Paramount lot, which is basically what sort of inspired me to do the kind of the traveling carnival bit, because our entire shop was on the Paramount lot, except for maybe a satellite shop up in Valencia that where we were running some transfer pieces. But the whole shop became a trailer on at Paramount. I mean, it's interesting being kind of unknown up until that point, and sort of, I guess, being perceived as like the underdog. I mean, I'm still the same. I'm still the same guy. I still have the same love and the same passion. It's just that I think now there is, it's like, in this industry, it's like you're going to get people that, when you're not doing well, they root for you, and when you start doing well, they start rooting against you. There's a resentment there because you're getting the shows that, they feel they deserve or whatever. And it's like, I truthfully, I don't care about any of that. I'm happy, working on a $10 movie, just as happy as I am working on, $100 million movies. It's, every time I get a job, I feel fortunate, and I never count on having a job. So, when I'm unemployed, I'm just as nervous as anybody else, but you find you don't get the calls as much, when people think you're always working. They call you looking for work, but you rarely get calls to come. I mean, I've got a few friends who call me, offering me work, and of course I pay that back down the road. But yeah, I mean, I just love working. I don't care what it is. I didn't expect them to shut down Hollywood Boulevard because when I pulled up, in the limo, I got out and I was like, where am I? It's like, because I'm recognizing the buildings, but it didn't occur to me that where I was on the street.
You're in the intersection.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's going on here? It's very special. I mean, this is our career. This is our profession, and it's the highest honor that you could receive doing what we do. So whether or not people on the street recognize you, that your peers do, and that people recognize and appreciate the work that you've done, whether they know you've done it or not. Yeah, I mean, I take an enormous amount of pride in it. I mean, it was also the first year that they had engraved your award there. They put the plaque on your award there. Rather, because I guess in the past you'd have to send it in and then they'd send it back to you X number of weeks later. Which wasn't going to work for me because I was going out of town. B, my parents were going back to Nevada because, I gave them the award. So I didn't know how, I was going to get it engraved. Unfortunately, they were doing it there this year. So, I just gave it to the guy. He gave me back the statue. It had my name on it. I had it with me the first night, in the hotel room. The next day I left, I gave it to them, and I haven't had it in my possession since. Exhausted. I was so jet lagged, because I had just flown in from Venice the day before. The day before that, because it was on a Sunday. That Saturday was the symposium, right? Sunday was the ceremony, and then Monday I flew back.
So you were in town just long enough to get a statue.
Came in to get a statue, yeah. It hasn't changed me. I don't know if it's really changed the situation that I'm in, because I've been in a very fortunate situation, the same situation I was in before that. Yeah, I don't know if it has. I haven't really thought about it, but I'm enormously grateful for the honor. I just don't know if it's changed. It certainly hasn't changed how I do things. It certainly hasn't changed, how I perceive things. If anything, it's allowed me to maybe be a little more efficient with production, because there's, suddenly there's a little bit of clout that you have. It made me want another one. How about that?
You want that book in?
I do. I want another one. I wouldn't think higher of myself than of anybody else. Everybody's got their own, their own thing, and if anything, I'm just lucky to be where I'm at, and I know that could all change in an instant. So, I'm enormously grateful, but, I don't, I would never, presume that, to walk around with this air of superiority ever. I was on Pirates 3, and I came into his trailer to take his makeup off for the last time, and the mountain of things he had to sign, pictures and DVDs and toys, and this incredible mountain of merchandise that he had to sign. It would take somebody 3 days to get through all of this. At that moment I said, I'm never asking him for an autograph for anybody ever again, and I haven't. And that's kind of the thing that I say, I let my crew know that too. It's like, we're here to be professional, we're here to do a job, Yes, there's a friendship, between he and I, but I wouldn't ever think of crossing that line, because I know what he has to do. It's like, people don't get it. It's like, hey, can you sign these 5 autographs for me? Thinking, that's not that many, but you add that to the 1,500 autographs that he still has to sign. That's a lot of work. It's a job in itself. Yeah, but I don't want to say that he's not glad to do it. He is glad to do it, and if I had asked him, he would absolutely do it, because he's enormously grateful to the people that that support him, and signing an autograph is the least in his world, the least he can do for him, and he's happy to do it. But I'm not going to. I don't even make it an issue. I don't even want him to have to agree to do that. And you say, people try to pass things through me to him. It's like they do all the time. It's just that you have to stop it. You got to be a line of defense. It really is. And it's not, and it's not taking it for granted. You can never take it for granted. Because certainly I'm not the first makeup artist that he's had, and, I probably won't be the last, but, I'm here now, and, we're making some interesting characters, and, for however long that lasts, I'm grateful for that. I think Lone Ranger was a blast. It was really hard, but it was a blast. Because I knew we were making something really special. Whether or not anybody, any critic agreed with us or not, I knew we were, and I knew we did. And that's what made every day, I could own it, I could own the experience, and I could own the work, and I had a great crew. Because when you go on location, when you're on location with somebody for, or a group of people for, as long as we were, and as long as I have been on these various location jobs, that becomes kind of a family, that becomes your family. So I surround myself with people that, that I get along with, people that I hang out with, socially, regardless of whether we're working or not, because they are my family. So on that one, I hand-picked them, and and we got them, and Gore was fantastic with me because he knew, based on the first 3 pirate films, sort of what I could do, and he let me have free reign. He let me design, Cavendish make him. He let me design all these, all these wild character makeups for this Hell on Wheels sequence that were never in the script. None of these characters would have seen the light of day if we hadn't all sat down around, a lunch table one afternoon and, on our day off and, said, oh, what would be great for this sequence is this, and let's have this guy carrying this guy, and let's do something like this. And we went off and we did it, And, I went to Gore and I was like, look, we've got some special characters coming. Do you want me to tell you what they are? He's like, no, just, do what you do. And tell me when I have a ringer and I'll put a camera on. I mean, it was, it's great having that vote of confidence from a director as talented as he is, with such a vision that he allows you to bring your vision in and, appreciates it. Well, right now, Pirates 5 is coming.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Another pirate movie. Spent a lot of my life on pirate movies, a lot of my professional life on ships. But I love them. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I've been on 4 pirate movies so far, and this will be 5.
When are you gonna go do that one?
That starts shooting beginning of next year. Is sort of the plan. Yeah. And then we've got before that we've got Into the Woods. Rob Marshall is directing Into the Woods, and Johnny is playing the big bad wolf character. So we'll have a makeup we start working on this coming Monday for that. Which is, one of the things that that I love about working with Johnny is that he's not afraid to cover himself up. He's not afraid to cover himself up in makeup. And you find a lot of actors, they want to be seen, and he doesn't care. He just wants to be the character, whatever that takes. And that's, you hear the story about, what he went through for the first pirate movie. They wanted Johnny, and, in comes Jack Sparrow, and he fought him on it, and ultimately, with Jerry and, Gore and, Dick Cook at the time, who was running Disney, his help, he stuck with that vision, and, here we are about to start part 3, so sometimes it's just best to let the creative be creative. Like I've said many times, the reason I got into this is to create characters, so I think that you can never, or you should never, lose your passion for this industry. Because truthfully, if you lose your passion, we don't need you in this industry anymore. This industry is getting hammered from so many sides by other technologies that if you don't maintain that passion, maybe it's best to step out of it, So if you're not sort of following the dream of being a makeup artist that you started following that brought you to this place, then you're done, which is why I am always, I'm always doing makeup, whether it's lucrative or not. Most of the time I end up losing money on it, but still I'm creating. Always create, always be passionate about what you're creating, and try to elevate our art, because our community, there was a time when makeup artists were very well respected. And I think we need to get that back. We don't need to be a circus anymore. We need to be respected. We need to be looked to. And I think part of that is the way you carry yourself, and part of that is the enthusiasm you bring. and it's the enthusiasm I try to bring to every project. So, I mean, that's what I would say to people, getting into this, people who have been in it and find themselves like, oh, what, I got to get up at, 4 a.m. again. It's like, listen, if you get to that point, yeah, everybody's tired at 4 a.m., whatever, but step outside yourself for a second, because you are very fortunate to be in this business. Very fortunate, because there are thousands, hundreds of thousands maybe, that would kill to be in this position. So never forget that, and always strive for better. And it's not all about, I came up with, I was reading a lot about, various people's philosophies on, success, and I think one of the ones that stuck with me, that, it's something that I came up with, was, it's like it relates to like sculpture, say, but I think it's appropriate for everything else. And I may be like stumbling through this, but the forms bring you in, the details keep you there. Meaning, and you can relate that to sort of the broad strokes of what we do can get people interested, but you're really going to maintain their interest by being detailed, and that's detailed in every part of what you do. It's not just sculpting. It's not just one particular thing. It's it can be your philosophy on doing makeup. And I think, unfortunately, there's there are influences out there that sort of cheapen what this profession is and was. And that's why I say we've got to, as a community of makeup artists, we have to elevate, this art again, and that's why I say, the details keep you there. It's like, it's not just about, hey, I can deliver this, giant thing that's gonna, it's gonna turn heads for 5 seconds. It's about, the finesse, it's about thinking something through from beginning to end. It's not, it's like when I design a character, I don't stop at the makeup, I venture into the wardrobe, I venture into the props. It's all about creating a cohesive look that works. It's like, I can't stand it when I see a makeup, this like an elaborate, facial makeup on a guy wearing a leather jacket. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, you lost me at the neck, and now it's sort of, that sort of cheapens everything else. So, when you're doing your projects, it's like, think about the whole thing. Think about, I'm not saying come up with a backstory, but think about the whole image. What's going to read, when you look at it. What's going to stay with you. Because something like that, it's like, I'll tell you what stays with me. It's the jean jacket. It's the leather jacket that stays with me. You don't want that.